Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Objective. And today we are here with Mark Pellegrino's in spirit. He might be joining the call, but he is not able to be here quite yet. So say a prayer for him and hope he makes it before long. What we're going to be talking about today is the Spotify controversies involving Neil Young, Joe Rogan, and more people by the minute. This is actually developing news. So let's start with at some point last week, Neil Young, the musician, Southern Man was one of his big songs. What were some of your favorite Neil Young songs? Go ahead, let us know in the chat, super chat especially, because we need your support. He said he gave Spotify an ultimatum. He said, please remove my music from Spotify unless you're willing to remove Joe Rogan. And of course, as you would expect, Spotify said, we don't respond to threats like that. They just said, okay, we're removing your music as requested. So of course, people really made a big deal about that from both sides of the aisle. Of course, the anti Joe Rogan people, I suppose many of whom are left leaning and have a bone to pick with Joe Rogan. They said, oh, Spotify should have done the right thing and removed Joe Rogan. They're not going to remove a guy they paid $100 million to come to their platform in response to a threat by Neil Young. Now, if it had been a very, very popular artist like Drizzy or Yeezy or even Wheezy, then maybe Spotify would have to really do some number crunching and figure this out. But obviously, Neil Young is not popular enough to have that kind of leverage. But as an interesting thought experiment, I would ask you, those of you on the other side of the aisle, or people on the other side of the aisle definitely were laughing at Neil Young, saying, ha, 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 he tried canceling Joe Rogan, but he ended up canceling himself because Spotify removed Neil Young. And all the headlines you see, people are trying to make it look like Spotify, they sided with Joe Rogan and they pulled off Neil Young's music as a act of ponage, the kids would put it, as an act of embarrassing Neil Young. They literally, all Spotify did was respond to Neil Young's request. Neil Young said, please remove my music, and Spotify removed his music. That's the story without the added flair. But I would ask you as a thought experiment, what if this was a subject that you consider to be very, very concerning? Let's say Joe Rogan was, I don't know, saying that the Holocaust never took place. Let's say someone at Joe Rogan's level of popularity was saying there was no Holocaust, the Jews made it up, and the Jews need to be, I don't know, wiped out of the Middle East or whatever it is that. Suppose that's what Joe Rogan was saying. And suppose someone like Neil Young said, hey, look, it's me or this guy. Please get this, take him off of your platform or I'm out of here. Would you be laughing at Neil Young in that case? Would you be would you be treating this like it's so silly? So from Neil Young's perspective, this is a serious issue, and I could see why, because sadly, in the state of affairs that we're in, and we've had plenty of episodes covering this topic in the past. Vaccines are now like an item in the culture war. Now, whether or not you're vaccinated or whether or not you believe that vaccines are legitimate, the vaccine relating to COVID, whether or not you trust this vaccine now says something about your political views. It says which party you're aligned with. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's anti-intellectual. It's unphilosophical. It's unprincipled. It is just, in my estimation, just the most blatant instance of partisanship, of just people choosing a tribe and that determining, setting their opinion on a subject. So yeah, now I guess being vaccinated now means you're left leaning. So I'm vaccinated. I'll probably be boosted. That means I'm Democrat. That means I lean left. That means what exactly? It means that countless other people, I tend to take my medicine. That's to me how I see that. It doesn't mean this is not Biden's vaccine like they're trying to turn it into. This is not it's not like the Democrat created hoax pandemic vaccine. I mean, just the amount of projection that you see people associating with this vaccine is absolutely pathetic. And I know obviously you have people that have lost their mind on the sort of alarmist left, I guess you'll call them, or sort of raving Democrats who, from the start of this pandemic, they've wanted enforced lockdowns. They've wanted people to always wear a mask all the time, everywhere, in all instances, which is, in my opinion, crazy and stupid and makes no sense at all. And of course, now some people, they want the vaccine to be legally mandatory, which I think is absolutely wrong. So there's absolutely crazy people on every side of this. But the fact that people they're just trying to laugh Neil Young off the stage, pardon the pun, for taking this issue seriously, I think is dishonorable. It's not respectful. It's partisan, right? I don't like it. I don't like it. Neil Young feels strongly about this. He thinks strongly about this. He thinks this is an important issue. I think it probably is a very important issue. The fact that so many people are not getting vaccinated because they've associated this whole narrative, this whole partisan split in affiliation with this vaccine. It's, like I said a minute ago, it's anti-intellectual, it's unprincipled, and it's partisan. So, okay, now getting on to the next part of the story. After Spotify agreed to remove Neil Young's music from Spotify, Nils Lofgren, who I think played in Bruce Springsteen's band, right? The East Street Band. So that's who Nils Lofgren is. And then Joni Mitchell, whose name is more familiar to me, but I don't actually remember who that is. They both also pulled their music off of Spotify. So, in solidarity with Neil Young. Not exactly chart-topping artists in this day and age, and it's very easy to laugh at them and say, haha, you're irrelevant. And this is kind of, I hate to say it, been the sort of go-to insult coming from the right in recent years. Anytime you try arguing for capitalism, arguing for property rights vis-a-vis big tech, they call you a lolbertarian. They call you, they just call you irrelevant, and they say, you're out of touch and you're a cuck. And that's all they have to say to you, because again, the political environment has gotten very anti-intellectual, anti-philosophical, and completely partisan. But yes, those are the facts. Joni Mitchell, Nils Lofgren have joined Neil Young in removing their music from Spotify because they don't want Joe Rogan to be on Spotify. Now, by the way, I didn't really touch upon this. What is Joe Rogan doing that is making people upset? It's that he's been interviewing controversial doctors or controversial experts, so to speak. He's hosting controversial opinions having to do with the vaccine, having to do with COVID, and that's kind of the issue. So what Joe Rogan has done in response to all of this is that he's announced he's going to try to do better, in his words, do better. And what that means, I think, is, let's say he has someone on his show that is sort of a vaccine skeptic or someone who believes in alternative treatment for COVID. Maybe the following episode, Joe Rogan will interview more of an establishment doctor. So maybe someone like Amesh Adalja, who I know a lot of people that are suspicious of this vaccine, they see Dr. Adalja like he's establishment. So maybe that would be the type of person that Joe Rogan would interview after interviewing a more of a controversial guest. So that's what Joe Rogan has agreed to do. I think that's a pretty fair response from him. Here's the thing. Here's how I look at this. It's like, I don't expect Joe Rogan to really know what he's doing. He is just kind of like Joe Schmo podcaster who happened to become the biggest podcaster in the world. And now he's in this position where like more people watch him than watch regular news, right? But from Joe's perspective, he's like, I'm just hanging out with people and having a conversation. Like, this is what people do. This is what people talk about. He says, like, isn't this just what people talk about? They say, like, hey, are you sure about this vaccine? Like, why do we need to wear masks when we get up from the restaurant table to go to the bathroom, but then we can take it off when we're sitting at the table? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So these are the types of things people talk about anyway. So Joe Rogan is televising and recording and broadcasting these discussions, but now it's being seen as though he's like a competitor to CNN and to Fox and to all of that, CDC, is that the name of the official like medical voice of the government? He's being treated as though he's like a competitor to them, like his opinion is official, but that's not really a title that Joe Rogan ever asked for. He just has that much influence because that's how popular he is. So I understand that he's in a position he didn't exactly ask to be in. It's a tough situation. Look, I've been saying this for a while. I've been saying this. You've heard me say this before. The internet was always too good to be true. There's no barrier to entry. And now anyone from anywhere can become the next biggest thing. And that certainly is kind of a dream come true in some respects. But it also brings about situations like this where the most unqualified people now have more influence. And I mean, it's true. This happens in the world of entertainment, the world of news reporting. While in some ways, like alternative news can be very, very useful. Like when the kid was, what was it called? The Catholic school, the kid from the Catholic school was very, very badly misrepresented by CNN and other media, legacy media, we'll call them. Covington, was it called? Sandman, Mr. Sandman was his name. Nick Sandman. Yeah, I mean, many of you know this story. There was a picture of him just kind of with a smile on his face while a Native American gentleman is like, chanting in his face and singing something. And the kid is just standing there wearing his Make America Great hat. And the headline is like, kid, taunts singing Native American man, like as though like the kid walked up to this guy and like tried to threaten him or make him uncomfortable. But in reality, this high school kid and his classmates were just standing there minding their own business when this Native American gentleman walked over and sang in his face. So the kid did nothing to instigate on any of this other than wearing the hat, but the headline made it look like the kid was looking for trouble. So of course, in an instance like that, the alternative news is very useful. So if I were Nick Sandman in that case, I would be very thankful to have alternative news. If I were Kyle Rittenhouse, of course, the legacy media, a lot of them, not all of the legacy media, maybe let's say Fox News and other right-leaning news organizations maybe gave Rittenhouse more of a fair shake. But when it came to, let's say, CNN and other legacy media, Kyle Rittenhouse was probably treated very, very badly. New York Times, the usual suspects. Someone like Kyle Rittenhouse, he was just painted in a very unflattering light. And so if I were Kyle Rittenhouse, I would be very thankful to have, the Tim Pools of the world and the Joe Rogans of the world there to present the facts that the media, the legacy media, is not telling you about. So I'm not completely throwing away alternative news and just saying it's good for nothing. But it certainly has brought about a lot of harm, in my opinion. It's certainly given a lot of rabble-rousers a very big platform, a very loud voice, and it's given a lot of people with no journalistic training, no oath, so to speak, that they've taken, either literal or figurative, people that have not studied the ethics of journalism, just kind of grabbing headlines and running with them, or just like grabbing a picture and turning that into a story, to the point where alternative news is not really better than legacy media, and in some cases is a lot worse. So going back to Joe Rogan, I don't think Joe Rogan means to do anything dishonest. I think he's basically an honest guy, but he's also not always the most informed. He's also not always entirely up to date on the facts. And Joe Rogan, he's always had a cozy relationship with conspiracy theorists. He was, affiliating himself with Alex Jones way back in the mid or late 2000s, back when Alex Jones was the most well-known 9/11 conspiracy hypothesist. I'll call him hypothesist. Joe Rogan's always been really cozy with conspiracy nuts and all types of quacks. Joe Rogan's always talked about copious amounts of drugs that he's into taking, and various types of medicines that can make you stronger and more versatile than ever imagined. Joe Rogan's always been a little bit of a nut job in some of the things he believes. And what's the problem now? He's the biggest name in news, biggest name in media, or at least he's one of the biggest names. So it's a tough situation. And this is why I say the internet was always too good to be true. Sooner or later, this whole thing is going to blow over in some way. I'm not entirely sure what's next. I don't know what's going to happen next. But as these artists, as these musicians are pulling their music off of Spotify in their ultimatum against Joe Rogan, wanting Spotify to at least censor Joe Rogan, if not remove him altogether, a lot of these musicians, it's made me wonder, like, what if this does grow? What if this becomes some really relevant musicians, like very currently popular musicians? You know, a headline right now says, Taylor Swift fans call upon her to remove her music from Spotify. Okay, this is a headline that came out a few minutes before the show. Taylor Swift fans are, you know, and what does that mean? It means, you know, some people on Twitter said something and it caught on, and maybe it was trending. I mean, you know, take it for what it's worth. But what if, hypothetically, or this could become a reality, someone like Taylor Swift says, you know, I've always not really been crazy about Spotify. About 10 years ago, Taylor Swift actually did remove all her music from Spotify because she felt that, you know, streaming was a new thing back then. So music streaming was a new thing. And Taylor Swift said, you're not paying us enough. You're not paying the musicians enough. You know, musicians, they're used to selling albums, you know, $10 for an album or something like that, maybe more, $15 for an album. Now it's free on Spotify. And if it gets millions and millions and millions of free listens, then it'll add up to as much money as she, you know, would be making otherwise. She was very suspicious of the whole concept of music streaming, and her relationship with Spotify has always been rocky. So what if Taylor Swift, A, agrees with Neil Young that Joe Rogan is being reckless vis-a-vis the vaccines? B, she sees this as an opportunity to make all of her music more exclusive, to say, let's say, okay, now Apple Music is where you can stream my music, she says, let's say Apple Music. Or maybe it's a completely new, there's Deezer, there's Napster, there's Tully, there's all these various and I mean, why am I dwelling on this? YouTube Audio is like its own streaming service, basically. All audio tracks are uploaded as audio files to YouTube. Like, what if Taylor Swift and others like her were to say, okay, we're going to take this opportunity to promote a different streaming service, and let's say they have a deal with that streaming service that they're going to get paid real nice to promote it that way. This could move history in a way that people are not able to predict yet. So that's kind of been my mindset about this whole thing. I do not like the idea of, you know, someone like Neil Young making these types of threats, and I do not like the idea of artists canceling one another and saying it's me or him. I mean, that does not work out for anyone. I don't like that part of the story. What I do like is that I'm sort of curious to see where will this lead. Maybe this will make another streaming service as popular as Spotify. That would be interesting to see. Now, Spotify, you know, so Joe Rogan, like I said, has announced he's going to try to be more responsible, or he's going to try and entertain other medical opinions that are not only controversial, but like he's had Sanjay Gupta, is that his name? The CNN doctor. Remember, you've seen that viral clip of Rogan confronting him about some of CNN's reporting about Joe Rogan. I think Rogan has had kind of regular doctors on, right? So it's not like he's only had outliers on his show, but nonetheless, he says he's going to try to have more of a balanced view, like he's going to try and have more of a diverse diversity of opinions. That is to say, he'll have more establishment, and it won't be only alternative voices. Spotify has announced they're going to start labeling things. Spotify responds to artists and hosts angered by false pandemic information. They say they are going to they're saying, so Spotify CEO says, we've had rules in place for many years, but admittedly, we haven't been transparent about the policies that guide our content more broadly. They're working to add a content advisory to any podcast episodes that include a discussion about COVID-19. So kind of like you see on YouTube or you see on Facebook, you see like a label that says, like, you know, click here to learn about COVID-19. And then it takes you to more of an establishment opinion, which I just consider to be basically And I mean, this is where I'm the sort of mainstream, blue-pilled, leftist that some of you see me as. I tend to go with the mainstream on this. I tend to trust normal doctors. I have never been one to look for holistic alternative medicine. This is hardly a time to get experimental with medicine, in my opinion. But this is going to start appearing, let's say, on a Joe Rogan episode where he interviews someone about COVID-19. Maybe it'll have like a disclaimer on it saying like the views and opinions here may be false, and click here to learn more of the official medical establishment view about COVID-19 or the vaccine. And then what are people on the right going to do with that? What have we seen the Steven Crowders of the world do when there's a label underneath their video? Oh, the left is censoring us. The left is calling us liars. The left is trying to slow down our traffic. The left, the left, the left. I mean, the amount of playing victim you see on the right in response to very, very light, quote, censorship is pretty pathetic, in my opinion. We're all lucky. We're all privileged to even be on the internet. And the way that people on the right play victim because there's like a label underneath their quack content is in my opinion pretty pathetic. All right, let's see if there's any updated news. I'm clicking over here to see. So that was the latest. Joe Rogan apologizes, says he'll try to do better. Spotify says they're going to have a content policy sort of thing where they kind of get to notify people that there may be misinformation on the podcast, such as Joe Rogan's show. And another headline is Neil Young promotes Amazon Music deal after Spotify boycott. So yeah, sounds like Amazon Music took advantage of the situation and told Neil Young, hey, let's promote you on Amazon, and we'll use this opportunity. So then what are people on the right going to say? Not all people on the right, obviously, but like, what are the cynics and the rabble-rousers of the world going to say? Oh, yeah, of course, this is one big racket, right? Anytime someone's making money, it's a racket. Anytime, if a doctor gets paid, if Neil Young gets paid, anytime someone's getting paid, it's that could have been their only motivation. When in reality, these rabble-rousers make more money than anyone. Alex Jones has been selling snake oil to his dim-witted audience for a very long time, selling them garbage or worse. But that's perfectly fine because it's non-establishment. All right, we'll see how this goes. So this is an ongoing story. I was wondering if this would even be relevant by today, Monday, because this was taking place at the end of last week. This is ongoing, as I thought it might. It actually is ongoing. More artists have left Spotify or may yet leave Spotify, and it's can be motivated by both their thoughts on the vaccine, but also it does not hurt when they do have this financial incentive, because people are looking for ways to take advantage of the situation and create a promotion out of the situation. All right, let's go to the super chat. Allison with $2 says, Spotify even told Neil he's welcome back anytime. Of course, again, you tell Spotify, remove my music, they remove your music. You tell them, remove my music, unless you're willing to remove Joe Rogan, they remove your music. It's not, it's not as dramatic as some people wish it to be. Neil Young is welcome back on Spotify anytime. Jonathan Honig with $2.99. Thank you for that. Marilyn with $5 says, here's an idea. Maybe we could let everyone listen to any content and sort it out for themselves. Yeah, I agree with that. But also, like the thought experiment I mentioned earlier, suppose there is a point of view that you consider to be very abhorrent and you don't wish to patronize. You just don't. Anyone who's willing to give that person a platform, you are now going to boycott. Is there any opinion someone could hold that would lead you to boycott that platform? So if Joe Rogan were a Holocaust denier, would you then stop using Spotify as long as they have Joe Rogan in the position of prominence where they have him? There's kind of the question, the thought exercise. So if there is a point of view that you would not want to see expressed on Spotify, or you're boycotting Spotify, if that is the case, then think about the fact that to Neil Young and to others like him, and I'm not quite sure I really disagree with Neil Young on this, the amount of misinformation that's out there and the amount of just rabble rousing around the vaccine is really pathetic. I don't see Joe Rogan as like a partisan, by the way. I don't see him that way, but certainly a lot of people are. They're very partisan about the vaccine. They treat it like whether or not you trust this vaccine says which party you vote for. And that's kind of silly. All right, Marilyn again with $2 says, my first comment may have been uninformed. I take that as a bit of a joke. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. This was sort of a last-minute solo episode. It was going to be me and Mark. We hope he's able to make it next time. And leave your comments and thoughts and opinions on this whole thing in the comments below. Coming up at 9 p.m. UK time, it's HBTV with Harry Binswanger. The episode today is The Evil of Restricting Immigration. I can't imagine that subject will arouse any strong opinions. Well, only one thing to do. Go watch the show at 9 p.m. UK time and give your opinion. Ask some challenging questions in the super chat. Then at 10 p.m. UK time, it's Method and Madness with Don Watkins, Ibis, and Larry. They will be responding to Vosh on the Market Socialist Twitch streamer. So a lot of you know who Vaush is. A lot of you probably think that if the Joe Rogans of the world should be threatened with deplatforming, then certainly, market socialists like Vaush should also be. And I don't disagree. And Joe Rogan is not a Nazi, but a lot of you feel that if Nazis should be removed from social media, then so should communists or communist apologists. I don't disagree. I'm glad it's not my decision to decide who gets banned and who doesn't. I'm glad I don't own any of these social media companies needing to figure out which opinions should be hosted as, open debate and which shouldn't. It's easy to say everyone should have free speech, right? It's easy to say everyone should have free speech on every platform. But when you're actually in charge of this platform and you see very, very damaging points of view, you see people whose opinions often lead to either violence or troublesome behavior or just overall like changing the culture in a negative way, and you have the opinion to say this view is not welcome on my platform, would you still go with free speech on this platform, or would you say no, free speech on your property, not on mine? There's the question. All right, but they will be responding to Vaush, and go watch that, leave a like on that, leave a comment on that, share that, promote that, get it as many views as possible, watch it all the way through. Don't just hit refresh to raise the view count. The algorithm is on to you when you do that. Watch it all the way through and do everything you can to promote that. And then maybe Vaush will reply to it. He seems to like mocking the objectivists and acting like he's got the objectivist number, like he knows what the objectivists are up to. So if this gets on Vaush's radar, maybe he'll reply to it, and then that's wonderful promotion for the network. It's wonderful exposure of Ayn Rand's books and ideas. So I'm all about it. Thank you all. I guess we'll jump over to Clubhouse now. And goodbye.